Okay, well, I'm going to share my application screen with you, and you should be able to see Cengage work that's been pulled up. We're going to be working again tonight with problem 22-03B. And so what you're going to be learning about in this chapter is budgeting. And what we're going to be preparing is a whole lot of budgets. The reason that I chose 22-03B to go over it with you is that these budgets will be, you will be required to be able to do these budgets with your other problems that we have assigned. And so this one has all of the budgets in it for this weekend. And so I'm going to try to get through with you as many budgets as I can. I know that I cannot get through the entire problem, but I'm going to work with you on as much of this problem as I can. So what you should do always is to read the instructions carefully. We are going to be doing budgets, as I said, for the gold medal athletic company. And with the assistance of the controller, the treasurer, the production manager, and sales manager, they have gathered the following data for use in developing the budgeted income statement for March. I would like to say that before you can do the budgeted income statement, you will have to do operating budgets. And one of the first operating budgets that you're going to have to complete is what we call the sales budget. So in your requirements, we're going to start with our first budget, the sales budget. So if you'll look at the sales budget that I have up here on the screen for you, you can see that they've already put it in template form. And so what we're going to be doing tonight is just filling in the information that is missing. So we're going to start with our sales budget. It's one of the most important budgets that we can do. It serves as the first budget that we'll be creating. We have to create it first because it's going to be used to prepare the production budget, which is our next budget. So let's look at the sales budget for March. I'll ask that you hold all your questions till the end of the class because, you know, I'm not real familiar with how to stop and answer questions. If you need to email me about something, please feel free to do that. I am checking my email regularly, and I'll get back with you on any questions that you might have. I'm going to ask that you hold the questions till the end of the session because there's several of you in this classroom, and I don't know if that's going to be a problem in you hearing what it is that I have to say. So we're going to start with the sales budget. In the sales budget for this particular company, we're going to be manufacturing batting helmets and football helmets. And so we're going to need to know exactly how many batting helmets it is that we need to sell for the period of time for March 30th or 31st, excuse me. We're doing this for the month ended March 31st, and the first thing you need to figure out is what the unit sales volume is that's going to be projected for this period of time. And where you get information is from your sales force in the real world. But in our problem, they have given us the information for the unit sales volume. So I'm going to scroll up to the top and look at part A for the additional information. You can see there that they have the batting helmets that they are going to be expecting to sell during the month of March. And these batting helmets are going to be 1,200 units. So for our unit volume of sales, we're going to key in 1,200. I'm going to check my work just to make sure that we've got the proper information entered, and also it'll be especially helpful when we're checking our total answers where we're going to have to find some information that is not given to us. The unit selling price is also given to you in Part A. And so for the batting helmets, the unit selling price is going to be $40 per unit. So what you have to find is the total sales for the batting helmets for the month of March, and you would simply multiply 1,200 by $40. So unfortunately, I don't know how to switch back and forth between sharing a whiteboard with you and getting back to Cengage with you. So I'm going to ask that you take notes carefully. And what I would write in my notes is about how to find the total sales is you'll take the unit sales volume and multiply that by the unit selling price. So the unit sales volume for our batting helmets was 1,200 units. We're going to simply multiply this by $40, the selling price per unit, and that will give us the total sales of $48,000. We're going to do the same thing for the football helmets. I'm going to scroll up to your additional information that's given in the problem. It's in Part A, the football helmets. They're asking you, or they're going to tell you that they're going to be selling, they're expecting to sell 6,500 units at $160 per unit. So we're going to simply put in 6,500 units, and we're going to use the selling price again that was given to us in Part A at $160 per unit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to multiply the 6,500 units times $160 as the selling price per unit, and that will give us $1,040,000. Again, I'm going to encourage you to check your work through Cengage just to make sure that your math is correct. You need to get your math correct in the sales budget because we're going to feed some information from the sales budget into the next budget that we prepare. The last thing on the sales budget is wanting you to total the sales of both the batting helmets and the football helmets. So we're going to combine the total sales together. And that's going to give us a total sales figure of $1,088,000. Once you've completed your sales budget, and again, you have to prepare that sales budget first, we're going to use this sales budget to help us to determine what we actually need to produce for this period of time. So I'm going to scroll to my next budget, which is Part 2, which is what we call a production budget. The production budget is going to start with the expected units that we are expecting to sell. You can get this information from two places. You can get it from your sales budget here, and that's the preferred area to get from. Or you can scroll back up to the top and look at Part A that is given to you. This information is given to you. Now, on the second line of this production budget, you might notice that it says that we're going to add plus the desired ending inventory for March 31st. Now, from our previous classes, you know, most of the time we're deducting out our ending inventory. But in this case, we're preparing a budget that we're projecting for the month of March. And so we want to have some ending inventory left over just in case our actual sales figures are larger than our budgeted sales figures. So we want to make sure that we have enough produced in case we sell more than we anticipate. So we're going to estimate an amount for the desired ending inventory, and that information is going to be combined with the expected units to be sold, or in other words, we're going to add it to the expected units to be sold. Where you get the information for the desired ending inventory, we're going to scroll back up to the top. It is a given amount, and that amount is found in the amount of the finished inventory or the finished products. So we're going to look at the desired inventories, which is in Part C, and we're going to pick up the finished product for the batting helmet, which is 50 units. Right now in the production budget, we're just concerned with the number of units and not a dollar amount here. This has to do with units that we're working with. So the desired ending inventory, of course, was given, and that comes from your additional information, and that additional information is in Part C. So the next thing we want to look at is the desired ending inventory for the lining. It's 65, excuse me, the finished products, the desired ending inventory of the finished products is what we want to look at. For the football helmets, the finished products are 220 units. So again, that information comes from Part C. The next step in the budget is to add the units to be sold plus the desired ending inventory. And then we're going to look for our estimated amount of beginning inventory. Notice this is beginning inventory, and we're going to be subtracting it from the total units that are required to get the total units that we want to produce for this company. The beginning inventory for March is for the batting helmets. The beginning inventory at March 1st is 40 units. We're going to look for the beginning inventory for the football helmets. And that is 240 units. Now make sure you subtract the beginning inventory from the total units to be required. $64.80 is the amount of the football helmets that we're going to need to produce. So this budget is very important in a manufacturing environment. This is the estimated amount of production for the two products that's going to be selling. The batting helmets, the total units that are going to be produced for the month of March is 1,210, and for the football helmets, it's going to be 6,480. Again, we prepare the budgets in order, starting with the sales budget, because we needed items from the sales budget to prepare the production budget. And we're going to also need information from the production budget to help us to determine our direct materials purchases budget. Now you remember, in a manufacturing environment, there were 3 product costs that we've been discussing in class. And those product costs are your direct materials, your direct labor, and your factory overhead. So the third budget is going to be the direct materials amount that you need to purchase so that you'll have enough materials on hand to be able to produce the units that you are estimating that you need, which comes from the production budget. On the first line of the production budget, they're asking you for the units that are required for production. Notice that our materials are going to be plastic and foam lining for the helmets that we are producing. Those are our direct materials. They're plastic and they're foam lining. Right here, what they want you to record in this first blank here is the amount of plastic materials it takes to produce all the batting helmets that are required for production. So I kind of wish, instead of Cengage saying that this was units required for production, I really wish he had put the materials that are required for production. Just to make sure you understand, what we're trying to figure out is how much materials we're going to need of plastic to produce the batting helmets that comes from the production budget. So get out a sheet of paper and write this down. I want you to write down the number of units to be produced for batting helmets, which is 1210, and the number of units to be produced for football helmets, which is 6480. We're going to use these amounts to help us to calculate how much plastic that we're going to need. And so in order to know how much plastic that we're going to need for our batting helmets, we're going to need to look to our additional information to see how much plastic it takes to produce 1 unit. When we find out how much plastic it takes to produce 1 unit, we're going to multiply that by the total units to be produced. So I'm scrolling to the top. I'm going to look for the information that's in Part D that refers to the direct materials that we're using in production. Notice they've got the materials for batting helmets recorded first, and then they have the football helmets. Let's start with the batting helmets first. You can see that the batting helmets are going to consist of plastic and foam lining. The amount of plastic that you need is 1.2 pounds per unit of product. So write this down, please. 1.2 pounds is going to be multiplied by the number of units that you are producing for your batting helmets, which is 1,210. So the amount of plastic that you need for your batting helmets is going to be 1,452. Again, I'm getting this amount by multiplying my units to be produced by the amount of plastic that it takes to produce 1 unit, which is 1 pound, 1.2 pounds for the batting helmet. That's how I'm getting the figure right here. Since we're working with batting helmets, I'm going to look at my foam lining that I need for my batting helmets. So again, the batting helmets that I'm going to be producing is 1,210. I'm going to multiply that by the amount of foam lining that it takes to produce the batting helmet, which is 1/2 pound that comes from Part D. So 1/2 pound is going to be multiplied by the number of units for the batting helmets. And so the number of units was 1,210. If you multiply 1,210 by 1/2 pound, it gives you 605 pounds that are going to be required for the batting helmets. For your football helmets, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to take the number of units that we are producing of football helmets, which is 6,480. I'm going to scroll to the top, and we're going to multiply that by the materials that are used in production for the football helmet. The plastic is going to take 3.5 pounds. So 3.5 pounds is going to be multiplied by the 480, and what we're going to get is 22,000 680 as the amount of plastic that we're going to need for our football helmets. For our foam lining for the football helmets, we're going to do the same thing. Take the total units to be produced of football helmets, which is 6,480. We're going to multiply it by the amount of materials it takes to produce the football helmet, which for the plastic is 3.5 pounds. So 3.5 pounds times the number of football helmets, that's going to give you the amount of plastic, and that's what we've already done. So we're looking for foam lining. So our helmets are 6,480 times the amount of 1.5 pounds. That's going to give you the amount to record for foam lining, and that amount for the foam lining is going to be 97.20. Then you're going to look for the desired amount of ending inventory. We're going to add the desired amount of ending inventory to what we need that's going to be required for production. But we have to add in some ending inventory for plastic so that we'll have enough plastic available to cover items if an employee messes up some materials when they are making the helmets, then we want to have enough to be able to cover those mishaps. Or maybe we will get some materials that are defective or inferior, and it's going to take more materials than we had anticipated. We want a cushion or a buffer of the amount of the desired ending inventory units so that we'll have enough materials in case there are mistakes that are made or we have inferior materials products that we're working with. So again, we're going to have to scroll to the top to look for the desired units of ending inventory that are for the plastic materials. And so let me see where that's located. All right, for the materials, the ending inventory, make sure you look at part C, for plastic is going to be 50 pounds. So 50 pounds goes into the column for the ending inventory, pounds for the plastic. Then we're going to look for our foam lining, the amount of the ending inventory of the materials. The desired inventories at March 31st for foam lining is 65 pounds. So 65 pounds is going to be placed into the ending inventory for foam lining. Your total units that are required are going to be for your batting helmets, your football helmets, and your ending inventory. You're going to combine all three of these together to get the total units that are required. And we're going to combine all three of these together for the foam lining. The next part is to complete the estimated units of beginning inventory. We're going to subtract the beginning inventory units from the total units required to find the total units to be purchased. So we must look for the units that are in the beginning inventory for the materials. In the beginning inventory, the plastic is going to be 90 pounds. Then we're going to look for our foam lining beginning inventory, which is in part B. It's 80 pounds. And then to find the total units to be purchased, you've got to subtract the 90 units from the total units required. Again, for the foam lining, we are subtracting the 80 units from the 10,390. That will give you the units that you need to purchase. Notice these are units to be purchased. Now we want to assign a dollar amount to these units. So we're going to look for the unit price of the plastic first. So we have to go back up to our additional information and look for the unit price. And that comes in part E. The anticipated cost of purchases and beginning inventory of direct materials for the plastic is $6. So we're going to take $6 and plug it into that blank. That's how much the plastic is going to cost us. And then we're going to look for the foam lining cost, which is right underneath the plastic cost in Part E, which is $4 per pound. The last part of this is to multiply the cost per unit times the number of units that we want to purchase of our materials. So we're going to multiply the 24,092 times $6. That will give you 144,552. You're going to take the 10,310 and you're going to multiply it by $4 per unit, and that's going to give you 41,240, which is the estimated purchase price of the foam lining. The very last thing that you need to do on the direct materials purchases budget is add the total cost of both products together, combine them together to get the total amount here. And our direct materials purchases budget is completed. Remember your manufacturing costs that we've talked about in class. This is the direct materials amount that you're expecting to purchase, and the other manufacturing costs are going to be your direct labor and your factory overhead. So your direct materials, your direct labor, and your factory overhead are your manufacturing cost. After you've prepared the direct materials purchases budget, we're going to prepare our direct labor cost budget. Again, in this budget, you're going to have to do some calculations. So I would suggest that you write down your calculations as I tell you to. We're going to need to determine the hours that we are requiring to produce the batting helmets first. Notice that we have two departments that we're going to put the batting helmets through. Our molding department is going to mold the plastic, and then we're going to assemble the rest of the batting helmets in the assembly department. So we have two departments that we're going to calculate the direct labor cost for, and we have two products that are going to be worked on in these two departments. And so we're going to show the cost of the products separately. So what they're asking for is the hours that are required for production. So what you need to know is how many batting helmets you produced. So you've got to go back to the production budget to pick up the batting helmets. I would suggest that you write down, and I already asked you to do this, so you should be able to see on your paper that you are producing 1,210 units for batting helmets, and also write down that you're producing 6,480 of your football helmets. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look at how much time it takes us to produce those units in the different departments. So we're going to look at Part F and your additional requirements. For your batting helmets, the molding department is going to take 20 parts of 1 hour. Multiply the 20 parts of 1 hour by the amount of batting helmets that you are producing, and that will give you the total hours for the molding department for the batting helmets. You have to keep up with each one of these separately. You're going to want to determine the molding department's hours that it takes to produce the football helmets. So take the number of units that you are producing of football helmets and multiply it by a half an hour. And that combined with the batting helmets will give you the number of hours that you have to use to produce the batting helmets. So again, we're going to start with our batting helmets. The number of units that you have to produce of batting helmets is 1210. That comes from our production budget. And then we're going to multiply 1210 by the time it takes for the molding department, which is 20 parts of 1 hour that came from Part F. Right here's where it's telling you that there are 20 parts of 1 hour. So 20% times 1210 is going to give you 242 hours. It might be easier on this budget if we just go ahead and complete what happens in the molding department first. So I'm going to move to my football helmets. I'm going to look at the number of units that I am going to be producing, which is 6,480. I'm going to multiply that by the time it takes to produce one helmet in the assembly department for the batting helmets, which is a half an hour. So 1,210 times a half an hour, $1,210 times a half an hour is going to take 605 hours. Excuse me, I didn't do that properly. We're working with football helmets. So you see right here, we're working with football helmets. So we need to know the football helmets that we are producing, which is 6,480. And we're going to multiply that by half an hour. And that's going to give us 3,240 for the football helmets in the molding department. So 6,480 Okay, again, I've calculated that wrong. So just go back to part F and look at what they're telling you here. Part F, the batting helmets for the molding department was 20 parts of an hour. And then you had to add to that the batting helmets times a half hour, which will give you 34.82 for the production in the assembly department. Notice that's the assembly department for the batting helmets. So I am going to fill in the assembly department batting helmets. The batting helmets was 1210. It took a half an hour to produce those in the assembly department, and 1210 times a half an hour is 605 in the assembly department. The football helmets were 6480 that you produced. We're going to look for the time it takes to produce one football helmet in the molding department. And when we scroll up to see the time that it takes to produce the football helmets in the molding department, it is a half an hour. So 6480 with number of units that we are producing of football, and we're going to multiply that by half an hour, and those are the hours that would go into the molding department. The football helmets, again, the amount comes from the production department. The amount is 6480. Those are the football helmets that we're going to produce. We are looking for the assembly department's time it takes to produce one football helmet. And so for the football helmet in the assembly department, it takes 1.8 hours. So we're going to multiply the 6480 times 1.8 hours, and that's going to give you 11,664. To get the total hours required, we're simply going to add these two together. Which is 3482. For your assembly department, we're going to add the batting helmet number of hours plus the football helmet number of hours it takes to produce those. The next thing we need is the molding department's hourly rate. So I'm going to scroll to find the hourly rate, and that comes from Part F. For the molding department, the hourly rate is going to be $20 per hour. The hourly rate for the assembly department is $14 per hour. And what's left is just to multiply the required hours by the hourly rate to get the total direct labor cost. For the assembly department, the number of hours was 12,269. We're going to multiply that by $14. And then finally, on the direct labor cost budget, we're going to add the two departments together. And that's going to give you 241,406. And once we're through with the direct labor cost budget, this is our total direct labor cost that we're estimating, then we need to figure out what our total factory overhead is going to be. Our manufacturing cost again are your direct materials amount plus your direct labor plus the total of your factory overhead. So the good thing about the factory overhead account is there are no calculations. You just plug in the amounts that they've given you that were estimated for this particular budget. So starting with the information in Part G, your indirect factory wages are $86,000. You just simply plug that in. Your depreciation for your power and light was $12,000. Your depreciation of your plant equipment was $12,000. Your power and light is $4,000. You just plug the amounts in that they've given you. And then your insurance and your property tax is $2,300. And then we're going to total our factory overhead. All right, and the last budget that we're going to prepare tonight is the cost of goods sold budget. And this budget is made up of the previous budgets. Remember, you have to prepare your budgets in order. And the cost of goods sold is going to start with what we call the beginning amount of finished goods inventory. So we're going to have to look for the amount of finished goods inventory at the top of the page. The beginning finished goods inventory comes from Part B. For your batting helmets, there were 40 units at $25 per unit. Multiply these two, and that will give you $1,000 as the beginning inventory amount for batting helmets. So I would write this down. I would put 40 units that were in beginning inventory for your batting helmets, multiply that by 25, and that will give you $1,000. You also have to combine with that the finished goods for the football helmets, which was 240 units at $77 per unit. So 240 times 77 is 18,480. That was for your football helmets. You've got to combine it with this amount here of 40 units at $25 each. And that would amount to $1,000. So I'm going to add $1,000 to this to get the total beginning inventory of 19,480 that goes into the cost of goods sold budget. On the next line, we're going to look for our beginning work in process inventory. The beginning work in process inventory amount is given. It comes from Part 6. The work in process at the beginning of March is estimated at 15,300. Our direct materials, we're going to start with the direct materials beginning inventory. And we need to find the cost of the direct materials beginning inventory. The direct materials beginning inventory for plastic is 90 pounds. You've got to find the cost of plastic, which is 90 pounds times the cost of the plastic, which was given, and it's $6 in Part E. So this is the $6 is the cost of the plastic. You're going to have to multiply that again by the beginning amount of direct materials, which was 90 pounds. So once we know what that is, 90 pounds times $6 is $5.40. You might want to write that down as the amount of the beginning inventory for the plastic. Again, the beginning inventory for plastic was $5.40, 90 pounds times $6 per pound. Your foam lining is going to be 80 pounds times $4. So 80 pounds times $4 is going to be added back to that $5.40. 80 pounds times $5 is 400. Okay, and it's not $5, it is actually $4. This is the cost of the foam lining. So it's 80 pounds times $4, which is 320. And then you have to add back the cost of the plastic, which was $5.40. It's $8.60. So $860 is the cost of the beginning inventory. To that, we're going to have to add our direct materials that we purchased. The direct materials that we purchased come straight off of the direct materials budget. That $185,792 comes from our direct materials budget. The cost of the direct materials available for use would be the total of these two. And that would be $186,652. And so your beginning materials inventory plus your purchases gives you what's available to use. You're going to subtract out your ending inventory of your materials. And you're going to have to determine the ending inventory of materials. I'm going to have to scroll back up to the top. we're going to look at the ending inventory amounts for our materials. There are 50 pounds of plastic that, again, we would have to multiply by the cost of that plastic. So the 50 pounds is going to be multiplied by the $6. And then you'll have to find the ending inventory, the foam lining, which is 65 pounds times $4. And then you combine the two of those together. Once you know what the ending direct materials inventory is, you're going to subtract that from the cost of materials available for sale. This is your direct materials cost, or the direct materials that you've used in production. To that, you're going to add your direct labor, which comes from the direct labor budget. The direct labor cost was $241,406. This is your materials used plus your direct labor. Now we need to find factory overhead, and that comes from the factory overhead budget, $104,300. Once you have the three manufacturing costs, you're going to add them together. So 186,092 plus 241,406 plus 104,300 equals 531,798. Your beginning work in process plus your manufacturing cost. We're going to add the beginning work in process. That's going to give you the total work in process during the period. Again, that was the 15,300 that you had from costs from last period that were brought forward to the beginning of this period, and those that you worked on this period together, all of them were 547,098. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to back out your work in process at the end of the period. The work in process at the end of the period is what you have left that you have not completed this period, and it needs to be for the March 31st. And that was an amount that was given to you in Part 6. Right here, the work in process at the end of March is $14,800. Once you've subtracted your ending work in process inventory from your total work in process, that'll give you the cost of the goods manufactured. You might remember from chapter 18 that we did a separate cost of goods manufactured. And what they did here is they combined it with their cost of goods sold statement. So the cost of goods manufactured has to be added to your beginning finished goods. So these two are added together, and that will give you the finished goods that are available for sale. So I'll add 19,480 to this, and that's going to give you the cost of the goods that are available for sale. Once you know what your finished goods available for sale are, you're going to need to subtract out your finished goods ending inventory. And you're going to have to figure the finished goods ending inventory from what they've given you in your additional information at the top of the page. The ending inventory for finished goods is 50 units times $25 each. I would write that down, and that amount will give you $12.50. 50 units times 25 equals $12.50. 220 units times 78 equals 17,160. The two of these are going to be combined together, and that will give you the ending inventory of 18,410. The last step is to subtract your finished goods inventory from your cost of finished goods available for sale. So we're going to subtract 18,410 from this, and that will leave me, or leave you, with 533. $533,368. That's your cost of goods sold. This is as far as I want to go with this particular problem. I'll continue this problem with you on Tuesday night. So what that means is I'm going to have to extend your homework assignment till probably Tuesday night, and I want to finish this problem with you. There's a couple more things that we'll have to do to be able to finish it, but that will cover about all of the section that you need for the first half of this chapter. I want to thank you for listening to me. I know it's hard for you to be on your own right now, but if you need me for anything at all, shoot me an email and we'll conduct these sessions the best way that we can. And so thank you for attending. I see I've lost a couple of people. Got 3 in here right now. And if you want to turn on your microphone, you can. I hope this has helped you a little bit. So thank you for showing up. If you've got a question, you can chat with me. Okay.
I think I'm good. I'm leaving now.